Hello and welcome to another great edition of Money Truth Moments with our very own money whisperer, Judy Copenbarger. How are you, Judy?
I am doing so well, Carlos. It's good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. Folks, if you're just joining us for the very first time, please make sure that you follow Judy at judycopenbarger.com. We're going to talk about her website a little bit later on in the show. And if you're just joining us for the first time, please make sure that you also watch some of the previous episodes because we've been touching on a lot of great things. Last week, we just to recap a little bit, we talked about Bitcoin, we talked about investments. So you want to make sure you tune in for that. And if you have any questions from the show that you'd like to ask, please send us a message and we'd love to address it here live. So without further ado, we have another fantastic show today. We're going to talk about something called buckets, right? And this is something you mentioned last week, which was very intriguing. And I didn't ask because I wanted to know today, what is buckets? What are we talking about with buckets?
Yeah, that's a term that's just out there in the financial world. You want to have a bucket for each purpose in your life. So a bucket for retirement and a bucket for travel and a bucket for your grandkids' education and things like that. So people talk about, buckets. I usually talk about it in different terms. One of them is really just a basic balance. And you might imagine if you like the visuals, the buckets that's what we love is the visuals. You might imagine just if you drew, a circle like a pie chart, and it has to do with allocation of your investments. So the last couple of podcasts, we've been doing a deep dive on, stocks. What are they? How do they work? How much should I have? Bonds. Bonds are totally the opposite of stock in the way they move with the economy. How much of those should I have, if any? And all these other, Bitcoins and all these trends and real estate and cash, how much cash should you have on hand? And it's interesting if you ask a layman, just a regular person down the block, they would say, I want to do what my apparently successful neighbor is doing or someone at work that I respect. I want to do what they're doing. And so they'll ask someone else, what are you doing? And then mimic that. But you got to remember, we're not all identical. Even if you live in the same neighborhood, you have roughly the same AGI, you earn about the same money as your neighbor or your peers or colleagues, you don't have the same goals. You don't have the same health issues, the same horizon, the same family makeup. You're not identical when you peel back the layers. So having the same allocations or the same pie chart when it comes to the investment types that you have, identical allocations doesn't mean you're going to have identical results. And it kind of reminds me of, people get so excited about Jim on TV, Kramer, the Bears and Bulls guy, or they listen to Susie Orman, or all of these, kind of financial gurus, the entertainers in the financial world. And, there's always this advice that's heartfelt and well intended and delivered with such passion. And you think, oh, that's what I should do. I mean, they're really talking to the person who called in, and I should do that. So they line up everything exactly with that pie chart. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, they don't have a lot of grace. They don't have legacy. They didn't ask these questions. And there are circumstances that might make that investment advice that they're receiving very harmful, or tax advice that they're receiving. It could really hurt them because there are other circumstances that might make it not be optimal for them. And so you really have to look at the whole picture. So with that being said, back to our pie chart. So if you just took pen and paper, I'm always big on pen and paper. If you just took pen and paper and you drew, a circle and you looked at the allocations that you have, and by allocations, I mean, how many stocks do you have percentage wise? And of the stocks that you have, what are they? Are they all technology? Are they all transportation? Are they all pharmaceutical or medical related? Or do you have a percentage in each of those different genres or types of business? Because when you diversify like that, when you spread that around, you're reducing or eliminating a lot of that risk. So you always want to diversify. So if we're going to have a well-diversified portfolio, a well-diversified pie, if you will, that means you're going to have stock as a percentage of your pie, not all of it, because stocks are equities. And when the whole market goes down, you're going to feel it in your stock portfolio. But if you have some, for example, interest-related instruments like bonds, short, medium, long duration bonds, that can help balance your portfolio. And when the whole market is in a bear market, it's going down, you're going to have something that's going the other way in general terms, if you look at the economic history. And there might be other things that you want to have in your pie besides equities and besides interest related instruments, besides your stocks and bonds. You want to have alternatives. You want to have non corollary assets. And that could be as simple as having some real estate. If you buy a home or you buy a second home or a cabin in the woods or a condo at the beach, that real estate is a non corollary asset, right? It's equity, but it doesn't necessarily go up and down with the market and value. It doesn't necessarily go up and down with the income related to the economy. And interest rates might not impact that value that you have in a non corollary asset like real estate. So, you want to have this balanced pie. And so people will often say, well, that's great, Judy, but what do I do at my house? Is that your question, Carlos?
That's pretty much it. Yeah, you know where I'm going with this for sure.
I want the perfect pie, but what's my perfect pie? So it's a hard answer to give without knowing more, because it might be that advice that's harmful because there's this other thing we didn't know. Like, why would I say have a bunch of real estate in your pie when you're about to inherit $5 million in real estate in the next 5 or 10 years, right? That would make it a problem. You'd be overweighted. If you already own a great, big, beautiful 401k with much equity in the company that you've worked at for many, many years, you might not want to add a whole lot more equity or stocks because you're already overweighted for most general terms. So I say for most regular people, you want to have, if you're moderately tolerated, for risk, you might want to have a 70-30. For many years, experts said 60-40, everybody all the way, no matter how old you are. I disagree. But if you start with about a 70-30, and by that, I mean 70% equity, that's your stock and your ownership interests, and 30% something else. That's your bonds, commercial paper, treasury bills, notes, cash, other assets like that. That's a pretty good little benchmark for most people to start. Again, I'm not giving advice to you, to do that. But if you have 90-10, for example, you might want to consider balancing. If you have 20-80 the other way, you might want to consider balancing it up a little bit. And if you have an advisor, financial advisor, if you have CFP, if you have someone in your family that's really good at this, sometimes we have relatives that just have a knack for it through their experience or from their own learning. Maybe they have a degree, or in economics or something, but they can help you find the right balance for you. You have to start with your horizon. How long do you have, and when are you going to need the money? What's it for? And that's going to be different if you're 20, if you're 40, if you're 60, if you're 80. It'll be different depending on where you live and what your lifestyle looks like. It'll be different depending on the family impact on your financial life. If there's a family business that might be sold at some point and everybody's going to give up a cash cow for cash, that's going to impact your planning and what your pie should look like. If there's an inheritance down the road where you don't necessarily need to plan all of those dollars for retirement, but it's going to show up in another way. If you have a business that you might liquidate at some point or pass it along to your children, you can't unravel, in my mind, you can't unravel the investment strategy you have from the goals that you have for your family, your business development, your retirement planning. If you're a teacher or a fireman or a first responder of any type, and you have this built-in pension, that you're working and you're earning money along the way, of course, but at some point that work will stop and the income will continue. That's going to impact the kind of pie you need to have and the planning you need to put in place. So all of these things come together. You might have neighbors that work at the same place, drive the same car, live next to each other. They each have 2.4 kids and a white picket fence. But one spouse of one of these guys is a teacher and the other one has their own business. It's going to be totally separate planning because of the pension and the future income that's either already in place or needs to be prepared. So you got to really consider those things when you're building your own pie. But long answer short, if you start with that roughly 70% equity, 30% interest related or non-corollary assets, that's a good place to go. If you're a little more risky and for some reason you can take more of an aggressive or, beyond moderate stance, then you might go to 80% or 90% equity. But there needs to be a good reason for that. And if you go down to 60 or 50, On the equity side, you're taking a whole lot less market risk, but you're taking on other types of risk. And there are many: opportunity risk, interest risk. There's all these other risks that you can take on. So you want to really balance that and get that perfect pie. Find someone to help you, but at least start with that 70-30 approach. And I think it'll help you get closer to where you want to go.
That's great advice. I also, as you're talking about this, I also think of the new generation who's starting the workforce, right? Those out of high school currently, those that are starting college as well too, and looking to for that career, what they're going to do for the rest of their life, and something that nobody really teaches the youngsters. And I say youngsters because I remember even back in the day, had I known or had someone like you advising me, hey, this is the route you need to go, I would be closer to retirement in a sense because I would have spent so many years already vested in planning my retirement and looking
Mhm.
to that. Nobody really tells you that, right? This is one of those things that I think that either you should start teaching, as a junior or a senior in high school to
Yeah.
start kind of getting that mindset, and it's sad because you see a lot of even adults now, in their 50s or 60s that most of them never really planned and they're kind of like in limbo, and I'm sure you've come across a lot of these folks in your career as well too.
Yeah, and that really is what drives this work that we're doing right here. It drives the book, it drives the online mastery program I put together, because who's going to tell you? Some of us are fortunate enough to have good modeling at home. We see our parents saving, we see our parents living within their means, building their business and tucking some away. We see them building a pension and maybe taking less of a paycheck for many years, so later they can have that stability in retirement. Um, some people get that modeling. Some people learn, they have a mentor that comes along early in life, or they just, connect with an advisor that kind of helps them on the path. Most people don't have that. Most people don't have that relative that can kind of say, let me show you, let me help you, that you can just reach out and ask. And so they're kind of out there in the winds trying to read books at Barnes and Noble or trying to go online nowadays and Google stuff. And there's more bad information, inaccurate information than good. And I always feel so bad when people say, "Oh, I learned it online." It's like, well, you might learn how to open a pomegranate or learn how to, plant a seed or fix your car online. But when it comes to your family's security and your future, at least have a couple of sources that can pour into you the right information. And a lot of the work that I've done the last 10 years is that it's what I've learned works with families, whether they're just starting out, going to get married, where they've been married and, they have kids and they're trying to figure out how to educate them, where do we put our dollars to make sure that happens, and still have something left to plan for our own retirement. So we're not working until we're 80. How do we do all that? And so there's a method to it. It's kind of an art and a science at the same time, but
Right.
it does take a little know-how. It takes a little discipline. It takes a little motivation. Um, and even when you fall, things will happen. Illness happens. Surprises happen with our health, with our family. Sometimes the economy changes or our job suddenly changes. We didn't see it coming, and we're rebooting. Maybe, it was 2008 and you own 5 properties. They're all over leveraged and now they're gone, right? That's happened to a lot of people. You're rebooting, you're starting over. And if you can avoid mistakes like that, that would be an example, by the way, of too much real estate in the pie, right? That a lot of people had that experience and took them years to come back. And there's also a leveraging issue with that. But the pie was out of balance. And that's what can happen to people. But there's always a way. If you find someone who can help you, whether they're a professional or a family member or people that are just really doing well. Maybe you have a colleague or someone at your church or someone that you serve in scouts with or in the community with that is really doing well, and you know they're doing well, not just keeping up and leveraging everything. Maybe sit down with them and just say, hey, what are you doing? What mistakes have you made? What right moves have you made? How did you become so successful? And what do you recommend for me? There's people out there that will help you if you ask. And you don't have to swallow your pride to do it. Just say, hey, I'm looking for a mentor in this area. Let's share ideas. I really want to learn from you. And that's okay, whether you're 20 or 60, to do that.
That's, I think for a lot of folks, that's the hard part. We're asking for that initial help because I
Mhm.
think the mindset is if I need that help, I feel like a failure. Like I can't do this on my own. And in reality is we don't know everything, and that's the whole point of the show. And you talked a little bit more about the resources, and I think it's a good transition. Share with folks about your website, because I think right now it's a perfect opportunity to talk about what we don't know and what's available for folks as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's things that we know, and there are things that we know that we don't know.
Right.
The big blind spot is what we don't know that we don't even know. We didn't even know that there's information exists or knowledge that exists because we don't even know that it's there, right? It's this blind spot. And so that's where a mentor can help you. That's where a good advisor can help you. That's where you can find the space to educate yourself. Spend a little bit of time just saying, what else is there? I know what I know, and I've had my experience and what my parents taught me and what everybody at work showed me, but is there more? And I would say, yeah, no question. I've done this long enough. There is more. And even if you master everything, master every part of personal and small business finance there is, it's a changing world.
Right.
The rules change, the laws change, the tax laws change. What you do with your business, how you hire people, the 1099s that changed a few years ago, how you have employees, what those rules are. All of that is just a moving, breathing um, animal. It changes all the time. And so that's where it really can be helpful to have a team in place to help you navigate that. Some people like to study and they want to learn all that and they want to Google it and read the Wall Street Journal and they want to look up all the tax codes. But I'm telling you, even if you love to do that and you nerd out on that stuff, and I can, even if you love all that stuff, you can't possibly know everything about everything that's coming or what's proposed or what just passed. You can't keep up. So having a team and having great resources is very helpful. And so one thing that I've put together is kind of an evergreen, timeless program called Money, Truth, and Life. It's an online mastery program, and it's the basics. Some of these things will change. The estate tax laws change, and that threshold of tax amount changes every couple of years, depending on who's making the rules. They change the tax rates and what you can credit and what you can write off and all of that. It's always in flux. But this is a place where you can go to get the basics. The difference between an equity and an interest instrument, the difference between a stock and a bond. What's in a mutual fund? That's what they're offering me at work. But I don't know how to build a retirement with a mutual fund. What's in it? How do I pick? And there's all these choices on the menu, right? I don't know where to go. Should I have a will? Should I have a trust? Should I change my will? Is that really the best route, for my kids to have legacy and not end up giving most of the money to the government or the attorneys? How do I navigate that? What do I need to know? So I created years ago a collection of all of these ideas, including things we're talking about today, balancing and the buckets and laddering and all these concepts that just work. It's more of an approach than an answer. And if you follow the approach step by step with the concerns you have, the goals, the dreams that you have at your house, you will get the right answer every time for your family. So it's more of a method. It's more of an approach than here's what you should do. You should be 70-30 and never change. No, it's a starting point. But if you go to Money, Truth, and Life and you watch a course or two, maybe in the investment area, and we cover all the pillars of finance, the legal, the insurances, the investments, cash flows and cash reserves. How do you do that? How much should you have in savings? Is it too much? Is it too little? How do you balance that? So all of those things are answered in this course. And you can take all the pillars if you want. You can take all of the courses, or you could just take one or two classes. They're free. You can just sign up there and just learn. It's a video format, kind of like this. It's a lot of Judy talking, but I'm speaking from a place of truth and from experience of what works with people. Concepts that can be simplified where you go, oh, that's what that is. I never understood the bears and the bulls. I never understood the different, revocable versus irrevocable trust and why my family did that, or the GST planning, or all of that estate planning stuff. Now I understand the value of having healthcare powers of attorney in place, durable powers of attorney in place. When would you use that? When do you need that? So all of those things are covered right there. You can access the Money, Truth, and Life online mastery program by Googling that, or the easiest way is to go to judycopenbarger.com. And there's a little green button that'll take you directly to the course, and you can just sign in there. So I hope that if you're looking for filling in that blind spot, learning what you don't even know that you don't know, this will be one of the resources that you can use. When people do that and when they engage and they share what they've learned through this course, that is my happy place. That's where I know that there's a mistake they were about to make that now they won't. There's a lesson they learned from someone else doing it wrong, or were inspired by someone who did it right. And now they're on a different path that's going to get them where they want to go. That lights me up. That's why I do this. That's why I spend the money to put together this technology and put my voice out there. I'm not necessarily looking for a whole bunch of new clients. I'm beyond that in my career. Now it's about kids, future grandkids, our farm, travel, helping charities that we really love, causes that we care about, and kind of the giving back part of life. That's kind of where we are as a family now, which is very fulfilling. And a lot of that has to do with all of this experience dealing with people in their personal and small business finance, what works, and helping people understand concepts that can be really convoluted and complex, dumbing them down, simplifying them down to a very simple way to understand it, and then more importantly, apply it and implement at their house, a method that works, a Copenbarger method, if you will, right? This will work. Not the only way. It's not the gospel. It's not only way to get it done, but it's proven ways to do that, proven ways to handle all of these pillars of finance. So if you prefer a book, you can go to the online mastery program, Money, Truth, and Life. There's also a book by the same name, and it's sold everywhere bestsellers are sold. It is a bestseller. So you can go to Kindle, on Amazon, the Kindle version. You can get it on Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Target, anywhere they sell bestsellers. It's called Money, Truth, and Life. Same name for the online mastery program. And I hope you'll visit there and find one of those little nuggets that might be the piece that you've been looking for but didn't know it. And it's great information. I'm thinking the holidays are coming up. Pass it along. If you have young adult kids or even not so young adult kids, just hand it to them. It's an easy to read, great little resource book. And I just think it's so valuable. It's stuff that everybody, when they read it or when they watch it, they say, Judy, where were you 20 years ago? I was right here, right? Where were you? Why didn't I know this earlier? Because I blew it. I did that and I should have done that. And you can help people avoid those mistakes. Maybe if you're rebooting, you can get it right this time by something that you learn in Money, Truth, and Life.
And that's, I appreciate you sharing that. I think it's also ties into what we said, or you mentioned a little earlier. There's so much information on the internet. There's so many people you talk to. You'll get this advice from this person, contradicts the advice of this other person, and then plus your research. So at the end of the day, you get so frustrated with all this information, but you still don't know what's what. One of the things I wanted to ask you just briefly, because I know we're getting close to the end of the show, is maybe touch on briefly on what are some things that we should actually pay attention to when we're trying to seek that help. Obviously, we can start with judycopenbarger.com, and that's a great, if you've looked at everything else, by all means, please look at the website and all the free resources from there. And then what's the next step from that, Judy, that you would advise folks?
Well, I would just say prioritize, the most important gap. There's something that may be keeping you up at night, or you wake up at 2 a.m. and go, ooh, wonder about that. Maybe there's something that you heard today. You're thinking, well, what is my 401k invested in? What do my parents have that we might need to put legacy planning to, so we don't end up with probate costs or estate taxes? What about our insurances? Do we have the right kind of, I hate to think about it, is stuff in a file and it's boring, and, your insurance agents, but maybe I should take a look at that and make sure my family's protected in all these different ways, and not just life insurance. It's casualty insurance, it's fire insurance, car insurance, Tesla insurance. It's, do I have the right insurance to cover me at work or in my business if something happened to that? Do I have really what I need professionally? Do I have what I need for liability? So it's all of these things that, might be triggered by a conversation like this, where you go, well, am I really okay? And I think if anyone just sits down and they think about the allocations they have, the gap that they have, and they take action, like call somebody, do something, that can be helpful. And then the next step is, well, who do I call? And, I mentioned some of the choices that you have. You have relatives, you have peers, people that you trust that have done well and obviously done well, not just kind of faking it. Um, you have professionals, if you're looking for an advisor, you might consider a holistic approach because there are so many advisors that will help you with the investments, and they'll sell you some stock and they'll put you in some mutual funds, but they don't really address the tax issues, the legacy issues, the goals that you have, the protection that you need to have in place. And in my world, in my perspective, if you have a really great portfolio and you're making 15% every year for the next 20 years, you have all this pile of money. But then if you're out on the freeway and you have an accident and you're liable or allegedly liable, the money goes away because you didn't have proper coverage. And so you need someone that kind of looks at those things too, all the protective side. Or you build up this beautiful millions and millions piles of money, and many of our clients have piles of money, but you don't have the protection in place to make sure the next generation will receive it. What have you done? You had a really great life and you worked and built it, blood, sweat, and tears. But now your family is looking at this terrible estate tax or this terrible liability. They end up selling a business to pay the tax, or they sell properties that were great income sources to pay the tax because that planning was not completed. So if you're looking for a holistic way to grow and protect at the same time, it's like your game is offensive and defensive at the same time. You need both, right? You need both if you're going to win. So to have both, you really need someone that looks at the whole picture, in my opinion. And that would be if it's an advisor, like a financial advisor, looking at someone that has an AIF, which is an accredited investment fiduciary. By law, they have to give you the best advice, looking at all the options when it comes to investments. You might look for a CFP. That's a certified financial planner. That's someone that had to go to college. Most investment advisors don't need to, and it doesn't mean they're not smart. They just haven't had that background. And it's one way to know if they did. But beyond college and having at least an undergrad degree, a CFP must learn and master several areas of personal finance. They have to know a little bit about it, the economy. They have to know a little bit about tax. They have to know a little bit about estate planning and the legal instruments that help you in your business and in your personal legacy. They have to know about stocks and bonds and bulls and bears and how that works. They have to know about margins and all the other tax things that go along with investments and building a sustainable portfolio. So a CFP might be a place to look if you're just going to Google or talk to people about who they're working with. Those are things that might help you as opposed to just walking into a credit union or a bank or whoever's in the cubby there. The banker says, here's our investment guy. Not that they are not well positioned to help you, but if you're going to a retail institution to get help, you got to remember that they're a retail institution, right? They work for whoever has their sign on the side of the building. They might not work for you. They might be helping you, but they work for someone else. So you just want to kind of, think of those things, use that filter when you're looking for a professional to help you, but it never will hurt you to look at a more holistic approach, someone that has a broad background rather than really good at picking stocks, in my opinion.
Excellent. All right, folks. And you know what time it is, right, folks? We always end the show with the Money Truth Challenge. So, hey, I'm looking forward to this week. It's been fantastic challenges you've been providing, folks. What do you got for us?
I do have a challenge for you, and it's really to apply what we talked about today with this balance. Build a pie. If you haven't already while we were talking, grab a pen and paper, not your notebook, but a pen and paper, and just jot down, what you think your pie looks like. Is it 60-40, 70-30, 90-10? And think about all of the portfolio that you have. So you might, if you're married, there might be a 401k over here, a 403b over there, a couple of IRAs, some Roth IRAs, maybe some investment accounts that are in your trust or in your joint account. Just look at all of that and make a pie with what you think it is. I think the second thing in your challenge is to actually verify that and talk about your options. If I'm, 50-50 right now, and I want to kind of move north in the equity side, if it's appropriate for you and it feels right, maybe the next item on your checklist or your challenge list would be to talk to payroll or talk to HR or go on the portal. You know, if you're at a company that has a big portal for your 401k and your options for benefits, go on there and see what's on there. See what's on the menu. And just as an aside, I'm thinking about those menus. They always have all of these 2020, 2025, 2030, 2035, these like built portfolios that you just can kind of click and say that's about around my retirement time. Those cost more. So I usually say avoid those and build your own portfolio. You might pay a 0.5% to 1% more by trying to hit that shortcut, and they know you're going to do it. And so they're going to charge you, for that benefit. And I think, 0.5% or 1% every year for the next 10, 15, 20 years, that's a lot of money. That's of the whole bucket. So I usually say avoid those if you have a way to build one, that's healthy for you. But yeah, the second thing in your challenge is to find out who needs to help you. Talk to HR, talk to payroll, take an action. Maybe there's someone you need to call, maybe that relative, maybe that investment advisor, somebody who can help you. And then the third thing in my challenge is always get something done, right? The Nike thing, do it. So make a challenge for yourself, put it on your calendar, put a buy date, by this date at this time, I will have made that call. I will have had that meeting. I will have had a chat with my spouse over a cup of coffee about our plan to get more aligned with what we're doing and where we're going. So that's your challenge.
Excellent, folks. And you heard the challenge. If you have any questions or you want to share some additional questions for us to address on the show, please do so. Send us your information and your questions, and we would be more than happy to answer them. Well, we're here every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. If you're not following Judy, do so at judycopenbarger.com. Thanks for those that joined this morning. Thanks for your continued support and all that. And remember that we're also doing the replay on Thursday evenings at 8 p.m. as well, too. So, Judy, any last parting words?
Yeah, elections are coming up. It's getting a little warm out there. So I would just say with the economy moving and all the news out there, just keep calm and carry on.
Excellent, folks. And we'll see you guys next week. And then also, please share the stream because we've got a lot of great content coming up, but we're not going to tell you. You just have to tune in and find out. Until next week, take care, guys.